Alright, hey guys, what's up? It is Solo, and we are back here for part 2 of the Beginner's Guide to Destiny. Now, as I told you guys last time, the part 2 was going to be on DLCs and seasons that have come from Shadowkeep on to the season we're in right now. So, before we get started, I'm going to issue a massive spoiler alert for all the DLCs currently in the game, which is Shadowkeep, Beyond Light, and Witch Queen. And all the seasons in between. All of these will be spoilers. If you guys don't want spoilers for Shadowkeep, Beyond Light, and or Witch Queen, just turn off the video and go play those if you do have them purchased already. I do recommend, I think the highest one I recommend is definitely Witch Queen. But anyway, with that being said, let's get started. Alright, so we're going to begin where we left off, which was the release of Shadowkeep. Now, the premise of the story for Shadowkeep was Bungie was going into a new cycle of content with the fact that they had just departed from Activision Blizzard and started publishing Destiny on their own. So they're going into what was known as the seasonal model. Now, this was basically rework of the original seasonal model we saw in Forsaken, rather than having 3 seasons where it felt like there was a lot of time between the 3 seasons and a lot of dead space. They actually changed it to being 4 seasons in between each major DLC release, starting with, of course, Shadowkeep. But with Shadowkeep also launched alongside it the season of the Undying, which was interesting to say the least. It was their very first exploration into this new type of seasonal content, which eventually would be evolved later on. But let's just start with the main story for Shadowkeep. So Shadowkeep follows the Guardians being sent out by Zavala to a distress signal sent out by, well, someone unknown in the story. But later on, you find out it was Eris Morn. And as you go out, you go to this edge of the, I guess, part of the moon. You're on the moon, and you're going through this cavern, this hive cavern, and you see this big thing known as the Scarlet Keep has been built, and it was built by a hive, I want to say witch. And the whole point was just basically that there was a citadel with the Scarlet Keep on it, and then underneath there was actually a very more dark thing underneath all of this, which was the Lunar Pyramid. Now, if you guys remember from the last video, the pyramid ships were with the darkness, and the fact that there was a lunar pyramid underneath the moon kind of spiraled into they're already here. Like everybody said, they're already here, they don't need to travel. But the thing is things kind of just got weirder from there. As the story went on and you go on to kill the Hive Witch who built all of the nightmares and stuff like that, and of course the Scarlet Keep, you actually go into the pyramid ship, and in the pyramid ship your ghost stops talking normally and starts talking basically about itself, and what you realize is that this is the darkness talking to you, not your ghost. And eventually it starts talking about, all this stuff about the darkness, and then you go in, and as soon as you get to the point where you're actually face to face with this entity, it decides to take the form of you and says one of the most chilling lines in Destiny, which is, "We are your salvation." And yeah, so that was our main introduction to what we were pretty sure was another main Destiny character that would be later on revealed in the Witch Queen, but we'll get to that in a moment. So yeah, alongside this Shadowkeep expansion, we also got the season known as Season of the Undying, and Season of the Undying had to do with a Vex offensive that you had to fight back because they were unleashed on everything because you went to the Black Garden and destroyed a certain thing. Well, eventually you get a new raid known as Garden of Salvation, returning back to the Black Garden and then destroying a mind of, destroying the, I always forget what it's called. There's so many mines in the Vex network, I always forget what they're called. I think it was a Confluence mine. Oh, no, it's the Undying mine. Yeah, so you kill the Undying mine, which then leads us into Season of the Dawn. Now, Season of the Dawn is actually one of my favorites because over the years of Destiny 1, you always heard of a legend known as Saint 14, who had gone down in history as the greatest Titan who ever lived. And his shotgun is known as the Perfect Paradox, and then of course you've seen his helmet, but you never actually seen him inside of the actual game because from what you know, Saint 14 died years ago. Like he was he was killed inside the Infinite Forest. That's what at least what you were led to believe, and so that's all that you kind of knew about Saint 14 is that he was a legend. And yeah, so with Season of the Dawn, you go back to Mercury, and basically time's all out of whack, and the Vex again are coming back to basically be kind of a major part, but not really, because the major enemy here is actually the Scions, who are taking control of a prototype of what is known as the Sundial, which is basically a way for the Guardians, and originally it was a way for Saint 14 to cheat death, but then something went wrong and Saint 14 got lost. Well, the whole story of it is you go through, you're battling, you're battling different Vex, and then eventually you're battling different characters of the Red Legion, and at the end of it, you actually end up finding the point where Saint 14 got lost, and you eventually find out that the reason why Saint 14 died was because when he went into the Infinite Forest, he came across a mind that could trap you and basically make it so you couldn't use your light. And then so after you find this, you basically go through the corridors of time, right? And you found it, and then you have to kill the mind, which was it a mind? Yeah, it was the modern mind. That's the modern mind. That's what it was called. And you kill the modern mind, and then you kill a bunch of Vex. And then finally Saint 14 thanks you, and then you go out and you come out of the corridors of time, and you go to the opening of the Infinite Forest, and at the end out comes Saint 14. And during this whole thing, he says, and I quote, he basically starts looking up to the Guardian because the Guardian's the one who saved them. And yeah, it was pretty cool. Another thing you end up finding out is this is where you actually start lighting the beacon for Trials of Osiris. So that was interesting. So the whole thing was just basically saving Saint 14 and stopping the Legion from changing the outcome of the Red War. That was the whole point of Season of the Dawn. But it was a pretty good season overall. Now, this is where we get to one of the things that a lot of people like, which was Season of the Worthy. Now, people didn't like the season in general, but the ending was probably one of the best that people have seen, because it was the first time that Destiny 2 had a live event where it actively took place in the tower, and yeah, it was kind of nuts. But basically what it was is, after you defeated the Red Legion at the Sundial, a bunch of Scions go on to what's left of the Almighty, which was quite a bit, and they basically make it so then the Almighty is plunging towards the last city, and the whole season revolves around you going into the it revolves around you going into what is known as the Warmind's like actual like place that it exists, Rasputin, of course. You find Anna Bray and you're talking to Anna Bray, and then of course Zavala's against it because Zavala doesn't trust Rasputin. Anyway, so what ends up going on is that there's a bunch of bunkers. You have to level up all these bunkers, and basically, yeah, hold up. Oh yeah, and then we kind of got some more information about some other people. So back in Rise of Iron, you heard of someone called Fellwinter. Well, you basically find out that Fellwinter is an actual AI known as Charlemagne. And basically, you ended up finding this out through a mission that gave you the Fellwinter's Lie shotgun. And then that was like a little tidbit to add on to that, because we did see a seasonal quest. But anyway, so yeah, you go through, you upgrade these bunkers through the season to basically equip Rasputin with the like the missiles and everything. And then finally, at the end, during the live event, you're in the tower and you see the Almighty coming down, but then all of a sudden you see a bunch of rockets and orbital strikes going towards the Almighty. Eventually it breaks off and crashes somewhere else on the Earth. And that was the whole live event. You got an emblem. I remember that live event. I was in my dorm with like 2 other people, and my buddy wanted to get the emblem, and so did I. So I sat there and trying to make it so then both of us didn't go AFK, and we got the emblem. So that was actually pretty cool. Now, here, here is Season of the Arrivals. It was the very last season in Shadowkeep, or in the era Shadowkeep. So basically, during Season of the Worthy, you were actually able to track where the Black Fleet were. Well, during Season of Arrivals, a bunch of ships go on to certain worlds inside the Sol system, and these worlds were Io, Mercury, and Titan. And what ends up happening is basically you have to grab this seed from the tree, from a silver tree, and you level it up, and of course they talk about how Savathun's basically intervening with them, talking to the darkness, and then Eris finds out that like the darkness is talking to them, and there's new weapons forming. This was the introduction of the new, what's it called, Umbral engram system, and it was originally through the Drifter, which I thought was pretty cool. And then yeah, the Drifter goes through yeah, the Drifter talks about the darkness, and then you would actually go and do these like 9 missions, and then eventually, let's see. Yeah, and then eventually more pyramids would appear, and then the Guardians would basically go to each planet and convince people to evacuate. Well, unfortunately, there were some that would not actually make it out of this, and we'll talk about that here in a second. So basically, all these people plan of getting out, including Anna Bray, Brother Vance, and then what was it? Yeah, so it actually talks about, so Anna joins back on Earth after restoring Rasputin's core into an engram. I also forgot, at the beginning of this, Rasputin tries to hit a ship and then just gets shut down. Like, entirely his AI gets, like, shut down. So Anna put him into an encoded engram and currently has possession of that engram. Sloane, the chick from Titan, wants to go down fighting, so she doesn't leave. Asher is interested in learning more about the darkness and takes refuge inside the Pyramidion, which is actually in one of the strikes. And we'll actually get back to Asher Mir. And then Brother Vance evacuates to the Infinite Forest, anticipating to meet Osiris again. And what you end up finding out is that I believe Vance is either dead or just gone. Sloane, we're pretty sure, is dead. And then Asher, in a lore book, you find out that Asher, we believe, merges with the Vex some way, somehow. And we'll get back to that here in just a second. So yeah, and then there is one last message from the darkness, and then you find out and then you meet up with Nokris, of course, another son of Oryx, so the second son of Oryx, and he is allied with Savathun, which we will also get to. And you defeat Nokris, and then you go to the Tree of Silver Wings, and then the darkness possesses the ghost once again, and teleports the Guardian to the shrine with a statue of a pyramid ship surrounded by effigies of Cabal, Fallen, Hive, and Guardians. The darkness, through the ghost, taunts the Guardian, declaring that ancient power awaits them on Jupiter's moon, Europa. And then at the conclusion, this is the second live event that they do. So basically, at the conclusion of Season of Arrivals, they did a live event where the Traveler started like shifting around parts of itself, and there was a lot of errors and stuff like that. But basically, the gist of it is the Traveler shifted around the parts of itself, and then when the pyramid ships came in, it healed itself and just pushed them out. Not before the pyramid ships took Io, Titan, and Mercury, of course, but yeah, it was definitely an interesting time. Now, that leads us into the next DLC, which is Beyond Light. Now, if you guys have seen Stasis, this is where we got Stasis from. So Beyond Light was, hold up, let me pull it up here. So Beyond Light was released in, let's see, November of 2020. And alongside it, it came out with Season of the Hunt. But the basic story of Beyond Light is you go to Europa and you find Varix. That's right, Varix. Or is it Varix, or is it... Hold on. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out it. Hold up. Because I'm trying to remember exactly what the... Yeah, what the character's name was called. But basically, there is an elixir on... Oh, yeah, it is Varix. Okay, yeah, so you find Varix. And basically the whole point of it is you go to Varix, and you see Varix being chased down by a new boss known as Aramis. And Aramis is the Kel of the House of Salvation, who basically blames the Traveler for everything. And what you find out is Varix ended up stealing like Splinter of Darkness from Aramis, but Aramis has more, of course, and she's learning to use this like ice ability when you first find her, and it makes her like enemies hard to even go against, and you just can't beat them when you first do it. So eventually you start learning how to use this new ability known as Stasis, which is a darkness ability. And with this, you also find the Exo Stranger again after literally basically years of the Exo Stranger not being a thing, because she stopped being a thing in the original Destiny campaign, and is now making a return probably 6, 7 years later. But basically she returns, shows you how to wield, like how to help you wield stasis, and you go and you fight Aramis, and you go through fighting all of Aramis's lackeys, and then the final fight with Aramis ends with Aramis being frozen on Europa with her hand stretched out towards the pyramid ship. And that was the whole premise of season of Beyond Light. Was the stasis was a big thing. Now with Season of the Hunt, which launched alongside Beyond Light, there was some new stuff which was known as hunts, and they're called Empire hunts, I should say. But the big thing about it was the fact that at the end of Forsaken, we actually saw Uldren Zav get reborn as a guardian. And that was like a big thing back then, but we had never seen anything come of it because of all the stuff happening. So we never actually got to see what happened afterward. Well, finally, in Season of the Hunt, we finally got to see what happened. So at the beginning of the Season of the Hunt, you see Osiris. Basically, you find out Osiris's ghost, Shigira, I want to say, was killed, and that Osiris was mortal. Well, when you catch up to Osiris, he's about to get killed by I believe it's a knight. And then someone stabs the knight from the back, and then you realize that someone is a one only Uldren Zav, now going by the name of the Crow. And if you guys don't know, when somebody's reborn as a guardian, you can't remember anything from your past life. So this guy is now known as Crow. Well, what you come to find out is Crow is working under the Spider, who, of course, in Forsaken was like a guy who just basically helped you find the Barons in Forsaken, and he's basically a mafia boss. And yeah, so you end up going through and doing these hunts, trying to basically battle to get to this Hive Celebrant, who is who is causing havoc, and eventually you get to the High Celebrant and kill the High Celebrant, and then at the end, you're able to take any treasure from Spider's room, and we end up choosing Crow. And yeah, Crow goes back to the tower with a with like a mask on his face, and yeah, it's very, very interesting. Okay, so next is Season of the Chosen. So this is where we get introduced to Keitel. Keitel being the daughter of Callus, and also the new Empress of the Cabal. And basically, this introduced a new PvE activity known as Battlegrounds, which actually had a really good reception. We also got introduced to what is known as the Helm, which is basically a ship that can go places and act as like a mobile command base. But basically, the whole point of the story for Season of the Chosen was that there was multiple, I guess, stories going on here. But basically, the whole story was that the Hive were going rampant at this point, and Keitel was trying to get us to join with her, but the way she was going about it was making Zavala on her war council and basically making Zavala bow down to the Empress. Well, of course, Zavala says no, and all this comes to a big conclusion in the final mission where the highest champions on each side fight, and whoever comes out victorious has to agree to the other's terms. So, of course, the Guardians come out victorious, and Keitel agrees on an alliance with the Vanguard. But the thing about it is the sub-story in this is that during all this, Crow catches word that Zavala is planned to get assassinated by this rogue group of Scions. And so, as it goes on, there's a point where Zavala's in a garden just looking around, and he feels like he's being watched, and it's because Crow's in the garden as well. There is a Scion that tries to basically kill Zavala's ghost, and Zavala, and then Crow yells out to him, and then Zavala kills the Scion, and then, there's another plot, or there's another time of this happening, but this is actually during the final cutscene of the season where they're standing at the ready, and Crow has his mask on because everybody knows him as Oldrin Zov, and the Scion hits Zavala's ghost, and Zavala loses his light, and then the blade that Keitel was using to basically mark the ground as hollowed gets taken by another Scion who tries to use it on Zavala, and of course Crow counters him, and then the funniest interaction ever for Keitel is Keitel picks up the Scion and just basically yeets him into the ground, which is the best thing ever, and it's hilarious to watch. But so the next thing we see is that Keitel knows that she didn't order this, so she tells them to track down the Scions, and then Crow basically repairs Zavala's ghost, and when Crow looks up, Zavala realizes it's Oldrin Zov, but then decides to forgive Oldrin Zov for, because he is now the Crow, and helps him up. So that's basically the big plot point for Season of the Chosen. Next, Season of the Splicer. This is another interesting one. So Season of the Splicer starts off. The trailer was basically that that daytime never came. Basically, it went to nighttime, and then the sun never rose. That was because the Vex were making it into what was known as the Endless Night, and it was being controlled by something in the Vex network. Now, as we knew, Varix used to be a Splicer, and so we reach out to Varix and say that if he can help us, that his Fallen, which we now call Elixni, can stay in the tower. Well, of course, people have issues with that. One of the biggest ones being Lakshmi, who is the leader of Future War Cult, and then the other two leaders of each faction. So yeah, so New Monarchy, Future War Cult, and Dead Orbit have an issue with it. Anyway, as we go on, there's a bunch more story points, like the fact that, you know, the Saint, that Saint 14 was, like, totally also against it, but then he realized that they view him as a monster and nothing else, and then of course Saint 14 doesn't want them to view him as that, as he wants to be more friendly, which we'll get to what happens with that a little bit later. Anyway, so the whole point was there was an event that you would do, that you would go into the Vex network and basically go and kill a boss, and then that would progress over the season to finally, you know, you do what you thought was the final one, and then you would find out that Lakshmi, with the help of Osiris, would open the portal to the Vex inside of the last city, around where the final boss of Wrath of the Machine, or not Wrath of the Machine, Scourge of the Past would take place. And so we ended up getting a final mission that plunged Guardians to fight a mine known as Coria. And what you end up finding out is Coria is actually being controlled by Savathun and not the Vex, and that the Endless Night was actually part of Savathun's plan. Anyway, you kill Coria, and then the light rises, Lakshmi dies, Osiris basically turns his back and is acting very sus, and then Varix and all of the Vanguard in the city basically unite together to get rid of the Vex. And that is basically where Season of the Splicer ends. Then we get into the big one. Season of the Lost. Oh boy, where do I start with this one? So Season of the Lost starts off with a mission to go after, to go after Osiris, after it's found out that Osiris was actually, Savathun. Now, mind you, at this point, we know Marisava actually didn't die and that she's been in a throne world this whole time. Well, basically, Marisav finally comes back to the Awoken City, and you find Marisav with Osiris, and they beg Osiris to change his ways. Well, you find out that's not Osiris. It is, in fact, the Hive Witch Queen, Savathun, posing as Osiris, from what we can tell, since Season of the Hunt, when Osiris lost his light. Anyway, so the whole point around all of this is you go through and you play the seasonal activity, and the seasonal activity is you go and you fight through a level to get a Lost Techian. Now this was actually one of the most elaborate ones, because to get the seal for Season of the Lost, you actually had to go through and do like puzzles and different achievements and things along those lines to actually get it. But eventually it went into the final week, which was basically, okay, it's going to take us some time, which was kind of underwhelming because you had to sit there and wait like until the last week of the season, kind of like how we are now with season 17. But basically, we get to the end of the season, and there's this, like, one of the best aesthetically looking final missions we've seen in Destiny so far. They're exercising this worm, and outside of this giant citadel looking like church thing is a giant worm. like one of the worm gods, is sitting outside in like a spectral image, and it just looks amazing. But anyway, season ends with Sivu Rao trying to stop you from exercising the worm. Of course, you win. You get done, and there was a bit of issues with people skipping the cutscene, but eventually, seeing the cutscene, what happens is you exercise the worm, and there was a hive rune on Savathun's chest that swapped places with her and Osiris, so we did get Osiris, but he's in a coma at this point, and Savathun's nowhere to be found, and that's the end of Season of the Lost, and basically the whole point is you screwed up. You got rid of Savathun's worm, and you got Osiris back, but Savathun's nowhere to be found. So yeah, that's the end of Season of the Lost. Jeez, I've been talking a lot. This is one take, by the way. Anyway, let's talk about Witch Queen. One of my more favorite expansions. So, with the Witch Queen, you start out, and Savathun, you actually start out on Mars. Mars has come back for some real reason. And you're just like, okay, why am I here? Well, you find out that in Mars there's this big like opening where they first found the traveler, where they first found the traveler, and as you get there, you spot this giant ship. So you go up on there, and then it looks like some like void warlock or like some guardian had been there before. Well, come to find out, you find Hive on there using supers, and then you realize, uh-oh, I screwed up really bad. Anyway, you come face to face with Savathun, the person who got away in the last season, and she is dead, or so you think. And then you go to loot the chest, you find out, oh, it's not that easy, and then she punts you out of her ship like fucking Gaul did in Destiny 2's campaign. And then you faceplant into Mars, and then they lead you into the Enclave, which is basically a place where they give you weapon patterns, and you get to weapon craft, including your first weapon, which is a new damage type and a new, basically, weapon type known as the Glaive. So yeah, that was pretty cool. By the way, the first two missions of this are free for everybody. I should clarify that. Anyway, so the whole story of the campaign of Witch Queen is somehow Savathun has the power of the light. And we don't know why. We think there's like some ritual that's making that happen, but we don't know. So we end up infiltrating the ship and getting into Savathun's throne world, which is massive, because of how powerful she is. But anyway, with this, we find out that all the hives have their own ghosts if they have the light, except for one. There is a light or a ghost called Finch who refuses to raise his hive guardian because of the things that the hive guardian has done, and this is an active choice of Finch. But anyway, you meet up with him. He helps you get into Savathun, and basically, as you're going along, you basically help you find memories of Savathun, like as she was with like different temples. One to Sithona, who was the original version of Savathun, when she was known as a krill and not a hive before they found the darkness. And then there is a monument to, of course, Savathun herself, which just basically talks about a bunch of stuff. And then finally, you find out that there is a monument to her brother, Oryx, in her throne world. And then eventually you find out that the reason why Savathun has light is because the Traveler let her have the light. And of course, this sends everything into a tailspin about what we know about the light, and of course, the Guardians, and then of course Zavala isn't having it and thinks we're lying. Well, eventually, we go into a thing where Savathun's like, I'm gonna bring the Traveler into the throne world, and then it'll never come out. And yeah, so we're trying to stop her from doing that, because as you go into this mission, you see the Traveler basically coming into the throne world, and the final mission is basically us after finding the last memory. The last memory was actually of the worm from Savathun's like exorcism, and the worm shows us that Savathun, Oryx, and Xivu Wrath were lied to. Because in the original story, it's it's the worm that we're looking at told them to dive deep to survive, because there was going to be a god wave. Well, turns out that was a witness lying to them, so then the Traveler never gave the Hive the light. So this whole time, the Hive have been worthy of the light. And anyway, we introduce this Savathun. She starts questioning everything, and then eventually we just kill her. And yeah, well, another interesting thing is after you kill Savathun, Imaru, who is Savathun's ghost, gets taken by the Traveler. And that's where Witch Queen leaves off with its main story, is that Savathun was given light by the Traveler, and the Traveler now has her ghost. Okay, and we move on to Season of... Okay, so one more note I wanted to actually add in before we get into Season of the Risen. This is future solo talking to you guys right now. Basically, with Witch Queen came Vow of the Disciple. It was a raid where you go in and you find out what a disciple is, and you fight through a pyramid ship that has been ruined in Savathun's throne world, that was basically trapped there by Savathun to trap in the disciple Rolk, who is the very final boss, and the disciple the Witness, who basically gets overconfident and then dies for it. And then you realize he's actually housing the 6th worm god, which was the mother of all the worm gods, and also the mother to all of the hives. So the hive are now slowly dying out. Anyway, I'll let you guys get back to it. Risen, which launched alongside of the Witch Queen. Season of the Riven was basically that we are trying to find out different things about the Hive Guardians and how to stop this lucent brood from basically overtaking everything. And every week you would basically get a new lucent brood and turn around and get information out of it by probing their brains with scions. Well, this, of course, angers Crow because he feels like this is what happened to him with Oldenzov. Oh, my bad. I totally forgot. Savathun showed Crow who he used to be, which was Oldenzov. And we did actually finally get confirmation that the Guardian was the one who killed Oldenzov. But anyway, so yeah, Crow is struggling with how they're going about this. Well, eventually he tries to turn it off, kills a scion, and then the Vanguard becomes in debt. Well, Saladin, who's been trying to steer him through this whole time, ends up taking the debt, and Keitel puts him on the War Council as Brachus Forge. Now, if anybody has seen This Week at Bungie last week or the week before, he is not known as Brachus Forge anymore because he was challenged like 6 times in his first day and became Valus Forge. Okay, and that's basically where Season of the Risen kinda, I believe, leaves off. Because I believe that's like the last story beat, is the fact that
I'm reading a cluster of hive bioenergetics.
Why can't I articulate that? Is the fact that Saladin is now a part of the War Council. But anyway, so now,
There's some encryption code on
with
this
that
thing.
being said, Season of the Risen ends. We also got some like new stuff like glaives and stuff like that, and it's pretty cool. We also saw the Synaptic Spear, which showed us a little glimpse into Arc 3.0. But alongside these seasons was a rework of all the light abilities, starting with Season of the Risen, having Void 3.0, and then this next season, which we're about to hop into, Season of the Haunted, having Solar 3.0. So anyway, let's start out with Season of the Haunted. So Season of the Haunted starts out very, very strange, because the Leviathan, which was vaulted a while ago, is back, but has what's known as egregore, which is basically like a thing that only spawns in what's known as the anomaly, which we're guessing is the primary source of the darkness. Which was actually part of another quest known as, oh, what's it called? It's where you get Dead Man's Tale from. But anyway, so the whole point of it is basically the Leviathan shows back up and starts making people's nightmares show up, including, for Zavala, his dead wife; for Keitel, it is Dominis Gaul; for, Crow, it is Aldrin Zov. Now, of course, Eris Morn always has her fire team as nightmares around her, so it doesn't matter. They're always there. But we also found out that there is one extra nightmare that you may not have known about, but you find out about because of the Trespasser exotic, which is Cade 6 haunts Ikora Ray, and that is brutal. And this is the season, actually, when this video goes live, is currently going on right now, and we're about to actually get an ending to this. So when we do get that, I will update with a video about the ending. But as we know, we go through this season, and you start out, and it's basically we're trying to detach these nightmares, because the reason why the reason why Callus is using these nightmares is because he wants to take control of the lunar pyramid on the moon. That's why the Leviathan showed up. That's what he's trying to do. Well, so the first one we had to do is, of course, we bind the nightmares to everybody. And the first one we have to challenge is Crow. Well, during Crow's thing, Aldrin Zov gets to him, and Crow finally admits that he's scared of being Aldrin Zov because of who he was, and he's scared that him and Aldrin Zov are one the same, which this eventually turns around into him seeing that his Aldrin Zov can help him through everything that he's feeling, and that he needs to learn to accept that it's a part of him, but it does not define him as a person. And yeah, so the second one was Zavala. Zavala was an interesting one. It was basically, you got to hear about something that we never really knew about, except for like little bits and details about Zavala's human wife. She wasn't a guardian, and she died a long time ago. And basically what it was is that Zavala had repressed the fact that their son had been killed by a house of devils, which hasn't been a thing in a while. Had been killed by one of the leaders of the house of devils. And that's what the whole thing is about. And you go and you fight through the Sever mission. Now, the Sever mission, you have to do Nightmare Containment. Nightmare Containment, I have a lot of mixed feelings. If you guys want to know my feelings about that, go look at my Horde Mode discussion video. That kind of gives most of my feelings about that. But anyway, you did Nightmare Containment, and then you went to do Sever, and the whole thing of Zavala severing is he refuses to forgive himself for what happened to his son Hakim, and he's looking for forgiveness that of himself that he won't give himself. And then finally he comes to the realization, with the help of Amanda Holiday, that not everybody can control the outcome of what happens, and that in this light, he needs to celebrate the fact that Hakim lived and was one of the bravest sons he's ever known, and he needs to learn to forgive himself because Sophia already has forgiven him. Also, the concept of when these ended is we got healed memories, which would hang out in the helm after they're completed. So we had Oldrenzov and Sophia. Well, next was Dominis Gaul. Dominis Gaul basically poked at the fact that Kaido was softer than him and her father, and the fact that she was failing as a Cabal leader, and the fact that she failed at the Battle of Terabottle, the Cabal homeworld. And anyway, she basically rages out, and she wasn't even bound to the ritual to begin with, but then she had to be rebound after the first Sever mission, because she eventually comes to terms with it, and basically talks about the fact that she has become the best for her people and not just the best for bragging rights, and the fact that she is who she is, and she will always be that. And anyway, so we get through those, and then you think it's done, but then we have another mission that comes out the week after the Kaido mission ends, which was known as, I believe, Catharsis, I want to say it was called. Which was basically, you go back to the Lunar Pyramid and you find out that Callus has actually tracked his way inside. Well, eventually, you go to the, I think is it the Darkest Hour? Yeah, it's like the hallway of the Darkest Hour, where you end up finding Kaido, and then Zavala and Eris Morn get ambushed, and so does Crow. You end up finding Kaido, and basically what happens is all the nightmares come back. The bosses, of course, which is Dominis Gaul, the Fanatic, and then I don't remember the last one. He was the leader of the House of Devils, or the Kell of the House of Devils. But basically, you fight these, you kill all three of them, and during this time, the healed memories basically hit Callus as well, with Oldrenzov quoting, one last chance from, I had to jump on an opportunity for one last chance to be a hero. Sadia saying, we're behind you, and then Gaul basically talking about, being a Cabal. Which, by the way, Gaul completely agreed with the fact that he literally chewed at the sun with the Traveler and got what he deserved. He in other terms, fucked around and found out. But anyway, so that ends with Callus, basically, you quote-unquote defeating Callus. Well, it's not that simple anymore. And it hasn't been that simple for a little bit. Callus is not defeated. He has actually become one with the Witness and his army. Which, by the way, the Witness was revealed at the end of Witch Queen, I should have said. And he's the guy behind the darkness. He's the, main bad guy of this saga. Anyway, so, yeah, you find out that Callus did become basically a disciple of the Witness, and he's known now as Callus, the Harbinger of the Second Collapse. And yeah, that's where we're at with Season 17. Yeah, so that's the catch up to the story. There's a lot that's gone on in the, seasons and everything else, and it's nuts. But August 23rd is when we're supposed to be getting Season 18, and then next week on the 16th is when we're supposed to be getting the epilogue of this season. So anyway, guys, if you guys did enjoy this video, hit the like button, comment down below. Did these videos help? Because I'm gonna be going over some more basics in the next video, which is basically what you're gonna want to look for starting out, what you're gonna want to kind of do starting out, of course. So yeah, let me know in the comments what you guys want to see in a beginner's guide to Destiny. And guys, don't forget to subscribe, turn on post notifications, or else Crab Titan's coming for you. Anyway, guys, I'll see you guys later.